Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier, and thank you kindly for stopping by. I hope the week has gone well. It certainly flies by. This morning I attended the relaunching of the Kenya Chamber of Commerce at the KICC, and it was a most enjoyable occasion actually. The president who spoke seemed to be saying that the Kenya Chamber has regained its mojo. I'll put up another photograph of when the president actually launched the Kenya Chamber. The Foreign Secretary, Ambassador Amina Mohammed, says the Kenya Chamber will be at the forefront of Kenyan economic diplomacy. And Kiprono has really repaired what was a very damaged institution, and this relaunch marks a big moment actually. And I'm glad to be a founding patron, and I must say I'm grateful to Kiprono for that invitation. Mind speakers tomorrow, July the 26th at the Intercontinental. We serve breakfast from 9:30. I look forward to hosting Joshua Oigara, who I saw today, of KCB Group. I did an interview with him in November 2013. Of course, he did a Mind Speak in 2012 with Dr. Martin Odor Otieno, and I'm looking forward tremendously to tomorrow. Bob says he's coming, and I think there'll be a whole bunch of people, so a lot of serendipity in that audience, I think. Macro thoughts turn to something that Stanley Druckenmiller said. As a macro investor, my job for 30 years was to anticipate changes in the economic trends that were not expected by others, and therefore not yet reflected in securities prices. I certainly made my share of mistakes over the years, but I was fortunate enough to make outsized gains a number of times when we had different views from various central banks. In a word, it encapsulates how I like to look at what I do. Home thoughts. Hunter S. Thompson still on my mind. It's your world. Pay attention. The hoofbeats rang through the town like pistol shots. We'd be fools not to ride the strange torpedo all the way out to the end. Drive fast on empty streets with nothing in mind except falling in love and not getting arrested. On that note, I'll put up that photograph of the Jaguar I got to drive when I was in Johannesburg. Being shot out of a cannon will always be better than being squeezed out of a tube. I am a roadman for the lords of karma, he said. He really is very prescient, isn't he? Political reflections. We are continuing the operation in full strength, Benjamin Netanyahu said, adding that the IDF was making big gains in Gaza. I'm not sure that's the case, and as I've said all week, I think the inflection point has been this tsunami of real-time footage that's coming via social media, which is essentially framing the argument ahead of any attempt by Israel to frame it. And that, for me, is a major game changer. Air Algerie Flight 5017 was a scheduled flight from Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso to Algiers, Algeria, operated by Air Algerie. On 24 July 2014, the aircraft disappeared from radar 50 minutes after takeoff. AH5017 lost contact with aviation officials about 50 minutes after takeoff from Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso in West Africa. It was bound for Algiers in Algeria. The last contact Algerian authorities had with the aircraft was at 1:55 a.m. when it was flying over Gao in Mali, an Algerian official said. The pilot had contacted Niger's control tower and asked to change route at 1:38 a.m. because of a storm in the area. Apparently it flies that route, Ouagadougou to Algiers, 4 times a week. I'll put up an image of a Swift Air MD-83 plane like the one that disappeared from radar on Thursday morning. My conclusions are MH370, MH17, ATR-72 turboprop, now AH5017. Planes are simply falling out of the sky. According to Bloomberg, air crashes are set on course to make this year the deadliest since 2005. The IMF put out their World Economic Outlook, spoke of an uneven global recovery continuing. Global growth projection for 2014 marked down by 0.3% to 3.4%, reflecting both the legacy of the weak first quarter, particularly in the United States, and a less optimistic outlook for several emerging markets, with somewhat stronger growth expected in some advanced economies next year. The global growth projection for 2015 remains at 4%. Downside risks remain a concern. Increased geopolitical risks could lead to sharply higher oil prices, I'd agree with that. Financial market risks include higher than expected US long-term rates and a reversal of recent risk spread and volatility compression. Global growth moderated more than expected in the first quarter of 2014 from an annual rate of 3.75% in the second half of 2013 to 2.75%, a half percentage lower than the forecast in April 2014 in their World Economic Outlook. Very interesting, in-depth, well worth looking at it in full. Saying the downside risks discussed in the April 2014 WEO remain relevant. Geopolitical risks have risen relative to April. Risks of an oil price spike are higher due to recent developments in the Middle East, while those related to Ukraine are still present. Do have a look at that. Currency markets, when I checked last, and that was before I went for that function, the euro was at 134.67. Dollar index 80.84. That's been grinding higher. Japanese yen 101.76. Swissy 0.9022. The pound back below 170 at 169.92. Aussie 0.9411. India rupee 60.165. South Korean won 10.2930. The Rial 221.89. Egyptian pound 714.96. And the South African rand 10.53.92. I'll put up a 1 month chart of the euro dollar, last trading at 134.67. I'll put up a 1 year chart of the dollar index. As you can see, we're still below the 2014 high at 80.84, but we're grinding higher. Facebook rose as much as 6.7% to $76.03 at the open in New York, topping the previous intraday high of $72.59 set in March. Company showed again that mobile advertisements are powering revenue and profit. Posted second quarter sales that surged 61% to $2.91 billion. Mobile promotions accounted for 62% of ad sales, up from 59% in the prior period. I wrote about Facebook quite a while ago on the day of the IPO, saying it's ubiquitous, raised $16 billion in the biggest IPO offering by a technology company in history. Then it sold shares at $38 each. And I quoted Salman Rushdie, the creation of a real life from a dream was a superhuman act, usurping the prerogative of the gods. And credit is due, I said then, it's a phenomenal achievement. Today, Facebook's $190 billion market value makes it bigger than Coca-Cola and AT&T. Touched a record high of $76.74, ranks at 15th in the Standard & Poor's 500 benchmark index, just below the $196 billion market cap of IBM. LVM, disappointed. It's characterized as an unusual miss, sending a cold chill over luxury, talking about Chinese weakness in particular. And an interesting comment from the L'Oreal CEO, who says digital is going to boost the business of beauty. We think it's going to change everything. Commodity markets, gold 1291.185. I think it's breaking down again. This will be the second back-to-back week loss on the week. Crude oil 101.99 last. We're staying above 100. The key level is 100 in my view. Sub-Saharan Africa The IMF says GDP expanded 5.1% in 2012, 5.4% in 2013, 5.4% is their projection for this year, 5.8% for next year, and I think that's pretty in line. South African all share eased 0.56% yesterday. It's up 11.598% this year. Dollar versus rand, that continues to strengthen. 10.5392 last. Egyptian pound, same levels, 7.1496. Egyptian stock market rallied 2.12% Thursday. It's now back up 28.92% this year. I said previously for the equity markets, I said it in January, had a vote in Egypt. Army Chief General, now President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, would actually get one of those impossible to believe votes of 99.8%, I said. And I think more interestingly from my point of view is that President al-Sisi has certainly affirmed his bona fides as a guarantor of the Israel-Egypt peace treaty. And he's been signalling that to Israel in particular with the way he's reacting with respect to Gaza and also his response to terrorism in the Sinai. And I think that's the important point to take away. Nigerian oil share is up 2.934% this year. It eased to 0.01% yesterday. McKinsey sees Nigeria as in the world's top 20 economies by 2030. Potential to be one of the world's top 20 economies by 2030, with a consumer base exceeding the current populations of France and Germany, according to McKinsey. Expected to expand about 7.1% a year through 2030, boosting GDP to $1.6 trillion, possibly pushing it above the Netherlands, Thailand and Malaysia. About 60% of Nigeria's estimated population of 273 million by then may live in households earning more than $7,500 a year, fueling a consumer boom, McKinsey said. Nigeria has a very positive outlook, said Acha Leke, co-author of the report, in an interview with Bloomberg TV Africa. The most important thing that needs to be done to get it there is execution of government policies. As Africa's largest oil producer with a population of about 170 million, Nigeria has consistently posted annual GDP in excess of 4% over the last decade. Foreign investors such as Unilever, Nestle, ShopRite are all expanding operations. Based on McKinsey's growth estimates for the economy, annual sales in consumer goods could more than triple to $1.4 trillion by 2030 from $388 billion currently. Ghana Stock Exchange, that's eased another 0.65%. That's up 7.0396% this year. But of course, the tribulations in the FX markets are beginning to infect the equity market. I did an interview with Salim Amin yesterday, and then going through his tweets, I saw this tweet. As Malawi celebrates 50 years of independence, a picture of the late President Kamuzu Banda. And I'll put that up as well. Coming to Kenya, unfortunate news from Mombasa. Somebody tweeted a photograph allegedly showing the female tourist body lying dead at Malango Wapapa in Mombasa. It's the second such assassination in less than 4 weeks. And as I wrote in 2012, my concern remains that what appear like uncorrelated spikes and paroxysms of violence conflate, become more broad-based and amplified. I put up a photograph of Mombasa Island, the sunset seen on Boxing Day 210 days ago. According to the Business Daily, speculators are rushing to buy land in Mombasa because of insecurity having taken land prices down. On that note, I'll put up the link for the video footage of the time we met the dolphins on the way to Wasini Island. Kenya shilling below key levels of 88 plus at 87.775. Nairobi all share plus 10.889% this year, rallied 0.5% yesterday. NSE 20 down 0.4669% in 2014, ticked 0.43% higher. In my view, the stock market has been a little too circumspect, and I expect it to move higher again. unless, of course, we get something on the security front. And finally, just to say, it would be great to see you tomorrow at Mindspeak. We've got Bob coming, we've got a bunch of people coming. I'm looking forward to hearing what Josh is going to say. There's plenty to talk about. Do try and make it. We serve breakfast from 9:30. The programme starts at 10.